The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. It is another Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
And he is Todd.
It's another Sandy and Toddcast, and I'll tell you what, we always have great guests on the show, but there's different tiers of them. This guy's in that upper tier of people that we've talked to.
Oh my gosh. Dean McMurray, the military medium, Todd. Oh my God, I love him. He's one of those people that's so honest and straightforward and just genuine. And the stories that he has to tell, I was riveted during these stories.
I think you're going to be riveted too. It is season 3, episode 12. It's Dean McMurray, the military medium, and it's next on the Sandy and Toddcast.
I'm Vicki Hackbarth, owner of Chakra Awakening LLC. I'm a certified Reiki master providing services which include past life karma clearing. Karma from your past lives affect you today. Karma is the memory of our souls, which often stem from prior lives. But we didn't finish then, we come back to finish now. Unpleasant situations are the consequence of lingering karma, which can be reversed and resolved. I can help you clear the past life karma carried over from former lifetimes. For more information, find me on Facebook at Chakra Awakening LLC.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
This is the one. This guy was in the military. This guy realized, while he was still in the military, that he has gifts.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, and by the way, thanks for joining us on the Sandy and Toddcast. But I mean, think about this. Think about our lives in, let's say, the last couple of years and how crazy it's been dealing with learning about our gifts and learning how to block them or use them in certain ways. Right. Can you imagine? And both of us have likely been judged for that. Sure. Can you imagine being in the U.S. military and having to come to terms with who you are and the gifts you have, and then being, judged for that down the road? I mean, can you imagine what that stress must have been like?
I thought about this after the live cast, after we talked to Dean, but the military is supposed to be very orderly, very honor-driven, and black and white, by the book. Everything is expected to be exactly the way it's expected to be, no deviation, right? In its
place, when it's supposed to be in its place, right? Yeah.
Complete discipline. Now imagine this man who discovers that he has these abilities. That's so not black and white. That's so not just order.
It's every color of the fucking rainbow, and you never know what color's going to show up.
I can't even imagine. And he was in, don't quote me, but I think he was in his early 40s when this all happened.
Yeah.
So he was in the military for years. He was only a few years away from his retirement. And he discovers these abilities. That's freaking crazy.
I think for me, you have respect for the guy because he has served the country. You have respect for him because, again, he's had to learn how to deal with this, etc. But then you throw that in. You put the two worlds together, and the amount of respect just goes through the roof. Because he could have gone many different ways with this. He could have said, listen, I'm a military guy. Things have to be in their place. It's ABC. It's not ACB. He could have just said poo-poo to all that.
Right.
But he took the challenge to accept it, grow with it, and somehow marry the two worlds together. I don't know how he did it.
Unbelievable. And to choose to help people, to choose to do this, to help people and try to bring closure. And some of the stories that you guys are about to hear are just phenomenal. And one of my favorite stories was about when he was serving overseas, and they were in help me, Todd, what's the word I want? They were in their vehicles.
They were in a caravan kind of thing?
Caravan, yeah. And so that story just blew me away, and I literally was riveted to that story. It was amazing. So you guys are in for quite a conversation.
You will learn a lot about being in the military, but also being a medium at the same time. This is Dean McMurray, Military Medium, Season 3, Episode 12 on the Sandy and Toddcast.
Hey, Sandy, Todd, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on with us.
You bet.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor. Again, we were just talking about this. It is, there's a holiday tomorrow.
Yes.
And we kind of purposely had you coming on today because we really want to celebrate the fact that you did serve our country, and we cannot thank you enough for that. So thank you so much for your service, first and foremost. And let's just kick off the whole hour. I'd love to know what your journey is. When you were a child, did you know you had these gifts?
No. I was, I know we were talking, Sandy, you were sharing that you're kind of a late bloomer too, right? And, my journey really started about 11 years ago. I'm about as old as you are, Sandy. So, we can go to Denny's Senior Sunday together.
Listen,
wait a minute. Where's mine? Where's mine?
I know. Let's put Todd in this category too.
We'll all go together. We'll go together here
fun.
after the show. And but going back, here I was getting, just returned from my last deployment. Here I was in my early 40s, and it was all holy hell started breaking loose. And that's, I call it like in a sense, kind of like a poltergeist type activity. Clocks and pictures started flying off the wall. Mm-hmm. And I know Todd had asked me earlier before we went live, like, hey, were you were you into all this stuff? And I was the atypical guy. I was, was not a believer in this. The craziest conversation I'd have with my wife is what kind of essential oil she should use. Be like, I don't know, it's Christmas. Put that, that pine tree stuff in. It smells good, But, and she was always a believer in it. And I wasn't, and she actually, I didn't know this, but she was worried what I would think for, a number of years after we got married. And so she would go off with girlfriends to go to these gallery readings and stuff and say, we're going shopping, right? In a sense, I guess they were, but they would go get readings. And so they were closet woo-woos, I call them.
I love it.
But when I came, for me, when I came back and all this crazy stuff was happening, I was just like everybody else, trying to put logic to, what defies logic. And so, when I'm looking at, boy, that picture shouldn't have jumped off the wall like that. That nail was right in the studs, all that stuff. And so I'm like, there's some weird stuff going on. And my wife, a little backstory, when I was overseas the last time, my wife confided in me that she had a local psychic come over and basically douse or cleanse the home. My daughter was 5 at the time, and she wasn't sleeping. And so I was like, whatever, I just kind of blew it off. And I started jokingly referring to this lady as the voodoo chick, because all you and your voodoo chick friends, was my language.
Right.
And because I will poke fun at something I don't understand or something that frankly scares the shit out of me. Right. So that's,
right.
I got to make fun of it. And, so when I saw that, I was like, get voodoo chick on the phone. There's some weird stuff going on, because who do you call? It's like the old aspect of, who you go to for your car and everything else.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the paranormal, if you don't travel in those circles, who do you reach out to? And so literally we did that. And she came over and started connecting to my grandfather on my mom's, or, my mom's dad. And, he was a World War I veteran, and I was not in the mood nor the headspace to be getting a reading, because quite honestly, I was like, what's Grandpa doing here? We weren't close, and but she was like, he's supporting you after your deployment and all this, and I wasn't quite embracing the reading the way that I should have been at the time. And quite honestly, I just wanted her to stop all the craziness.
Right.
I didn't understand how things worked or the parameters of things. And so she left and nothing quieted down. Actually, it got, actually busier or louder. And until one night I was washing baby bottles for our then newborn son. And he was our deployment baby. And but I was washing, bottles around midnight, and I just had a creeped out feeling that there was somebody standing behind me. And I was like, kept on turning around, and all the hair was standing on end. And even though I don't have a lot, right? And, and I was like,
I wasn't going to say anything.
Right? Yeah, I know. But I was like, how do I know that there's somebody here? And I just had that clear cognizance, that clear knowing. I didn't know it then, but it was without a shadow of a doubt that I knew that my grandmother was with me. And, just in my bones, I knew it. And it was like, so I'm talking to myself. It's like, it's Grandma. Grandma's not here to hurt us, Yeah. And so quite honestly, I thought, oh my God, I'm tired, whatever. I'm just going to go to bed. And in the back of your mind, I think, even if you're not open to it, if you know somebody that you loved is there in spirit, you kind of, part of you wants to connect. There's,
absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I started talking to her one way in my head. By this time, I'm laying in bed. I'm very much still awake, but my eyes are closed, laying in bed. And it's like, hey, Grandma, how you doing? Miss you, love you, all that great stuff, right? All the questions you'd like to ask, what you been up to. But I'm not getting anything. It's, sending it out. And then it was like my ego. My ego is my drunk friend that knows all the wrong things to do. And my ego goes, you know what? This is all bullshit. This is all BS, Dean. You're making it up. You probably watched a show that got your just your subconscious going, whatever, trying to make sense of it, right? If she's really here, she would prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it was immediate that as soon as those thoughts left my head, the room turned absolutely frigid. Now, guys, I live in the Midwest, right? And I think we're getting ready to experience our first snowstorm this season.
Yes, we are. Yep.
This was like in December, January timeframe. And it was frigid out. So I'm like, holy crap. Like, did the wife leave the window open? Is it off peak power? And, quite honestly, I was like, part of me was like, there's got to be something more. And so again, my ego said, you know what? If she is really here, she needs to touch us, because then it's something so visceral, I can't ignore it.
Right.
And she wasn't there to disappoint, because it was, I remember it like yesterday. It was a gentle yet firm pressure that started at the top of my head, went all the way to the bottom of my feet. And it wasn't like she was choking me, like, you will believe.
Right.
It was like she was laying almost on top of me, in a sense, to push me into the bed, where I became heavier than the bed. And I could hear the springs compress and the bed come up kind of around me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy shit. Like, what seal to hell did I just break? And who did, and it's like, so, I was freaked out at that point. And I was basically saying, it was like the 6-year-old little boy in me came out like, all right, Grandma, love you. See you soon. You got to leave. And as soon as I said that, though, it was like nothing ever happened. But I'm sitting up in bed, completely covered in sweat, out of breath. And I'm like, oh my God, is this what after how many years am I having a psychosis moment? I was trying to analyze myself. And my wife, who, as I shared earlier, we had a newborn at the time, and our daughter was still young. She was sleeping like she has never slept, and just snoring away. And quite honestly, I was like, "Oh my God!" And I was trying to, really hard to wake her up, and she was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "There's somebody here." And she was thinking somebody's breaking in. I'm thinking, no, that would be easy to explain or respond to. That's physical. This, you can't physically see somebody there, And no, I said, there's somebody here. There's a spirit. And she's like, how do you know that? And I go, I know, right? I said, get a hold of Voodoo Chick. Get her ass over here. And she goes, and so she's like, Dean, it's like 2:00 in the morning. She's like, you need to go back to bed. And I'm like, you think, so I think I got up and watched TV, the rest of the night or whatever. Right. So that was really if somebody wants to call it their awakening or their, was really the beginning, because it was my come to Jesus moment where for me, I got slapped across the forehead with the proverbial 2x4 and say, hey, dummy, get your stuff together because you got stuff to do, even though you got you're like in your last 3 years of military service. You need to get your proverbial crap together because you got people to help. And I didn't know it at the time. And so that really started me on a journey going, what was that? Why me? Why now? And it took me back to the place of origin, which was the common denominator, which was this voodoo chick, I called her. Right. And she said, yeah, it's pretty simple. You're a medium. And I said, I don't want to be. I was really, and I was adamant, right? Yeah. I was adamant. I joke about it now, but I said, I don't want it. Like, I really do not. I'm going to go work for the VA. I got a newborn. I got a 5-year-old. I'm in my last 3 years of service. Daddy can't play like boo-boo. I can't go up to the that's what I was thinking. Oh my God, I'm going to end up in the funny barn, and
but do you look back on it now, Dean? And are there things that have happened to you in your life that you can say, okay, this may be why I felt this way or I experienced this? Can you think back and remember anything that may have meant you were a medium back then, but you sort of pushed it down and, subconsciously?
Sure. Well, Todd and I were talking, going back, I don't and even though I wasn't open to this stuff, after I embraced and, going into the journey, like about a year or so, and then kind of going back and reflecting, like how back, was there a moment in time that I remember that there was something that happened that was like, that gave me pause at the time, or I just brushed it off and be like, And we were talking about Afghanistan because there was a couple instances. One was, part of our mission was to occupy mountainous observation points for a week at a time. And we would, put, 60, 70 pounds on our back and basically walk up the side of this mountain. It sounds so lovely now that I talk about it. I know, right? But you go up there and you spend a week, and, it sounds like a destination vacation. And you spend a week up on, in this, mountain or ridgeline, wherever your observation post was. And one of the things I was sharing with Todd is the one area that we were at, our outpost, I'll call it, or our fire base that I was based out of for the time that I was in Afghanistan, was really it was really a slaughterhouse for the Russians. And that's kind of before they were actually called Taliban. They came in and kind of really slaughtered most of the Russians that were in there. And why I'm sharing this is because we were talking about how when we were on this one particular observation post, it was like I was always hearing whispering or voices. And I was always paranoid because it was windy up there and you couldn't quite hear quite well. And I don't like wearing earplugs when things go boom or shooting things back, years ago now. But so my hearing wasn't what it used to be. But you get paranoid, right? If there's somebody that wants to harm you, you want to hear it. And so we would pull up the thermal imaging and all the other techno gadgets, and there would be nothing physically. We had trip flares and all that happy jazz, and there was nothing physically. But, thinking back on it, I'm like, was I picking up on the voices of, whether it was Russian soldiers or the Afghanis that died there? It's got a lot of history in that region of the world. And the other time that I was, Todd and I were talking about was actually in a night patrol that we were doing in up armored vehicles. And the mission was actually to do a route reconnaissance or route patrol during the night in a known hot zone, right? And so tensions were already high, but it was kind of routine pretty much at this point. And I was not in the lead. I was kind of more center in the, so we were doing our, deal. And all of a sudden we stopped. We had been going for, a number of hours or whatever. And all of a sudden we stopped, which is a no-no. You don't stop unless you absolutely need to for, common sense reasons.
Right.
And especially if you do need to stop, you don't obviously stop in a choke point or somewhere where, people can, do an ambush on you.
Right.
And we had stopped for like an extended period of time. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. And it was like a voice behind me in the vehicle. Now I got to add, there was only myself, the driver, and then we had a 50 caliber machine gunner that his legs were like right behind my shoulder. And when he says something, you can barely hear him, right? But it was like somebody was behind me, right behind my head, going, move the vehicles up another 500 meters. Very clear. There wasn't a stutter. There wasn't no static. And so I'm trying to get the lead vehicles on the radio. There was no answer. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so, I hear this voice, imploring me again, move your vehicles up another 500 meters. And so I'm trying more on the radio and I'm like, what the heck is going on? So by this time I'm outside the vehicle. I'm sprinting forward. So you remember, our troops, wearing ballistic body armor, full basic load of ammunition. So you're carrying and to sprint is now I'd probably die. I'm so out of shape compared to when you like crawling. But I got up to the front and here these guys, they decided, hey, let's take a bathroom break. It's like, what are you guys losing your mind? And that's why. And here's one guy smoking. And I said, have you guys lost your mind? Like I knew that they knew better. And for whatever, I forget what the excuse was at the time. And when we were chatting, the fellow squad leader and myself heard a audible clicking. And so to paint a little picture, so it's kind of like high terrain to one side of us. And then the other side kind of goes off the road. And then it's kind of not quite a sheer cliff, but it kind of goes down quite a ways. And we could hear an audible clicking. And we still believe to this day that it was a trying to remote detonate an ID. Now, one of the things that we were carrying with us that was very, very in development still was these Ied jamming devices. The contractors would always show up, and this was back 2003, so we're going back a number of years. It was very, very new technology, and they were like, they just bolted literally a can. They said, just flip this switch and just see what it does. And we're like, okay. And it created a bubble of electronic protection, basically. And, we still believe to this day that saved our ass. number one. But I go back and saying, okay, I can understand the technology, that I can wrap my mind around that. But where did that voice come from?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I go back to. And I know, Todd, you asked me, like, did you ever definitively figure out where that voice, what that voice was, or where that voice come from? And I can't. I don't. And, and like the thing that I share with Todd is, I don't know at this point in my life if I really need to know, because if it was something divine in nature that was there to help us.
Yeah.
So whether it was my guardian angel, whether it was my spirit guide, whether it was my intuition, it was there to help. It wasn't there to, be a threat or be malevolent or anything like that. So it's just like, okay, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having our back and being there, like, hey, move these vehicles up. You got to get them up. Let's go. There's something not good. And that's why I'm still a big proponent of people listening to their intuition. Doesn't matter what they do.
Yeah.
So whether you're a policeman, military, whatever, or you could be a utility, worker, whatever, you can really accentuate and keep yourself safe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Dean, how do you go from being the military guy, finally getting a slap, as you said, with the 2x4 from grandma that, hey, there's something going on here? What's that transition to kind of where you're at now? How do you transition from being Dean, the military guy, to being Dean, the military medium? What's that like?
Yeah. Well, if I could give you an analogy, it's like going to the drugstore, buying 2 boxes of X-Lax, slamming both of them with a Red Bull. I know that's pretty gross, but in a sense, it's like everything seemed like in that 3-year period, as I was talking about, it wasn't that. In a sense, that's what I kind of joked. I was like, God, it was like we really just chugged down this spiritual X-Lax because everything was happening and it seems like it's crazy. Like, it's like out here it's normal, and in your life it's just bonkers because things are going a million miles an hour. And it was crazy because in the beginning it was so turbulent, and here I was trying to live 2 lives. I was trying to, show up every day as the soldier and keep the spiritual aspect out of it. And I supervised at that time, before I retired, I was supervising like 4 people, 3 in my office, and then there was a remote office that I supervised. And so the folks in my office, of course, you start BSing around having coffee or the water cooler. And it was kind of funny, some of the conversations, like one guy be like, dude, I'm going to pray for you. And somebody else like, dude, that's so cool. And so, the conversations were so varied and talking about the things that are happening. And, but yeah, it was just like really kind of trying to, I guess to borrow an analogy of passing through the eye of a needle, going a million miles an hour, it felt like, and also transitioning through the military, but kind of trying to pull the gear every day of saying, okay, I'm Dean the medium by night, but Dean the soldier by day, right? It sounds like a new Marvel comic.
I know.
Man, right?
And by the way, if you're listening, Marvel, so
Dean McMurray. Yes.
But truly, and it wasn't until I really got within that last year that I kind of become the grumpy old guy. And that's what I called it, because I was like, what are they going to do? Bend my dog tags, make me retire? And because I was tired of living a lie. And I was ready to come out of what I call the proverbial metaphysical closet. I had embraced who I was as a medium, but I couldn't fully live that because I felt that if I did, I would be that guy, right?
Yes.
And I would be shunned by a lot of superiors that I earned their trust and respect, a lot of officers and folks. And I didn't want to, lose their respect. And, And I think we're all looking for that. I think we're all looking for validation. And I think we're looking to be seen at a deeper level. And when I was transitioning, we'll call it, it was like I was, coming out of the shell, so to speak. And my family, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. She was from day number one, my biggest supporter, and always has been. And it's been really interesting. And my mom, my dad, my family, has been I was kind of worried a little bit when I came out, and my mom goes, that makes total sense. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but mom doesn't say anything when you're 16. When you're 16, mom doesn't go, hey, this might happen to you when you get older, because, whatever, right?
Yeah, right.
But you know what? I think that once, like a lot of us, I think that there is this stigma in the world about people who have these gifts. And one of the reasons Todd and I began this whole thing was because we wanted to sort of help build a community where the stigma wasn't there, where everybody could speak freely and explain their thoughts and feelings and ideas and experiences. And I was the same way. I was very afraid when I first realized what was going on to really say anything. It was I just kept everything inside. And you learn as you're growing up and everything, you kind of learn to explain it away. It's everything except what it really is, because to think that it could be something like that kind of makes you feel like, oh, people are going to think I'm crazy. So, and then once it starts, it's very difficult. And I think that once you actually admit to yourself that, I have these gifts and I'm going to use them for good, and I'm going to, I'm going to go on this journey, I think it does get better.
Well, exactly. And when you were saying the whole thing, what's the song, I'm a Survivor, right? First I was afraid and then petrified. Yep. I'm not going to sing it all for you guys. Come on.
Disappointed.
Yeah, let's do karaoke night when we go to Denny's. Come on. No. But exactly, Sandy. I think I always use the analogy with some people saying, what's your sweater? And what I mean by that is you think of an old ratty sweater and you start pulling on a thread and it starts unraveling. And once it starts unraveling, you really can't stop it. Yeah. But you got to find where you want to start, and wherever. Maybe, for me, it just seemed like it smacked me across the face. But some people start out of interest, right? They're like, oh, let's do tarot, or let's do healing, maybe Reiki, or, healing touch or something. But there's so many different, what I call threads. And it's just, where do you want to start? There's so many avenues. But yeah, for sure. It's like, but you can't unknow things. That's what sucks too. It's like, sometimes it's like, are you sure you want to do that? It's like, are you sure you want hot sauce on your egg? It's like, you can't go back, you just.
Good analogy.
Where's the journey for you now? Like, what is your everyday life as a medium? What are you doing with your gifts? What does that mean for you now?
Well, I can tell you that the X-Lax has the analogy. I've kind of gone beyond that. No, seriously. Of course, obviously I do this full time. As soon as I retired, it was a natural transition. I kind of looked at myself like, am I really doing this? Like, I completely cast aside the aspect of going to work for the VA, and and here are my kids, a newborn and a 5-year-old, and I'm like, oh my God. And but yeah, and we've been doing this now that's been, good Lord, that's been 9-10 years.
Wow.
So since pulling the plug from retiring and doing this full time, but where am I now? It varies every day, Todd. It's not an easy answer, because every day it's like I'm kind of asking, like, how can I serve today? I know we were talking before we went live, like one day, I was reached out from a priest. Another day I was reached out from a lady, her husband, at the time, her husband was a veteran and he was in a hospice unit and they wanted a family reading in a hospice setting. I had never done that. And to bring not only him peace that he's going to somewhere, that his family's there waiting for him. So kind of a deathbed type reading.
Yeah.
And other times helping with missing person cases, to even entertaining ideas from producers and, kind of working on with some projects. And so it's varied. It varies from day to day. And now also in the past, I want to say we're going on 5 years with it. I've also been doing a fun little thing with realtors and custom home builders in my area, believe it or not, is I call it intuitive real estate consulting. And because I learned dowsing and I was like, geez, every time we work on a home or cleanse it, right, it sells so much quicker. And, we even did it with our old home and it sells like, and this was before all the craziness with the housing market. And I was like, you just start to think like, who else could use this? If you have
fascinating.
If you have an ability, why not market it in a way? And if you could show a track record of actually being able to help not only realtors, but maybe custom home builders, and not just homeowners, but or those folks, but also maybe business owners, could you give them an edge? And it, obviously they trust me to continue on we're going, like I said, we're going on 5 years. So it's been really fun doing that as well. So between doing readings, like a typical day, like just today, I finished up, I took a week off. I was in Arizona driving a friend's Jeep. So that was, hey, you need to go to Arizona. Let's drive your Jeep down. I'll fly back. And so I did a week doing that. And then, doing monthly email readings and then normal, typical mediumship sessions and then running my daughter to dance and then coming back and doing reading.
Well, you gotta,
it's life. It's, but yet it's like any entrepreneur, it's it's intermixed within my, with everything going on. So
we got a viewer who asks, did you have self-doubt when doing readings? And if so, how do you get through that? I'm sure at first you must have had some self-doubt, right?
Absolutely. I think in the beginning, there was some big self-doubt and especially I remember a expo when I first started, that was the big thing to do, like get into what I call the holistic expo circuit, whatever your region or whatever. Right. And it's like with all the psychics and all the mediums and, and it was pretty much in my state or couple states here in, the Midwest. And so I did that pretty, in a sense, religiously, and it was kind of a big deal. And there was one city that I was in one time, this gentleman, he kind of shook my confidence in my reading because the information that I brought forward, he could not validate one iota. And he was very upset. He was like, you need to go back to whatever. And it really shook my confidence. And, so for the rest of the day, like I was really self-conscious, like I was really pulling back on my, readings and everything else. And I had a friend come through, a family friend actually come through and get a reading. And she was like, and she gave me hell later on. She was like, why did you, why were you pulling back on energy, your energy? And I said, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. And, where my confidence wasn't there, just going, well, instead of, in a sense, standing up for myself and being confident. But it was interesting because I was more accurate than what he or she, even realize. So this came back in validation later, and it was more about just me being confident in the moment. But yeah, I think it goes back to, continually practice what you're doing, right?
Sure. Do you find, Dean, that a lot of times, and I've seen this myself, a lot of times people won't recognize some of the things that you say until they get away from it and out of the situation, and they look back on it and they think, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. I did know this, or I did know that, or this really did happen. Do you find that sometimes?
Yeah. I was having a conversation with Chip Coffey one time, and he said, you know what I call that? He goes, I call it psychic amnesia. He goes, where the client is sitting there and they're getting so much information. They're like, no, I don't know. And then maybe it's the husband or the wife or whatever. And then the spouse is sitting there going, nudging them, going, don't you remember that? Or the mom or whoever. And they're like, right. Because they don't feel the pressure to remember it the way that you're seeing it or explaining it. Right. And then until later on. And great example is I had a friend one time when I was starting to do readings, and I did a reading. She was like, yeah, I'm not really sure, Dean. I think you're smoking that sage, She was they were giving me a hard time. And I was like, whatever. And I was like, I said, I really do trust that it'll make sense. And I said, write it down, write all this down. And so they did. And 2:00 in the freaking morning, my phone starts going crazy with all these texts. And it was the friend that going, oh my God, I figured it out. Yep. And here they were. They had been drinking afterwards, of course. But then they were like, let's text Dean. And then I was going to respond. And I thought, it's 2:00 in the morning, go back to bed. But yeah, right. So yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's immediate. They're like, oh my God, that's that's mom, or that's my daughter, or whatever the case is. But, I always trust the process. So
yeah.
I think too, for someone who's had readings and things like that, sometimes the person who's being read, their perspective is a little different from your perspective. You're seeing things that, we have our eyes closed to. I've got family members who tell me all the time that my mom visits me and she's always here and she's communicating with me. And I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see mom. I don't communicate with her. She's just not around. So I think sometimes just because, we get so wrapped up in our own lives and our own viewpoints on everything in life, we don't open that up and think from the outside to try and put the two things together, to make it make sense.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I had a reading one time even, and this was well into, this actually wasn't that many years ago. And I was actually getting Reiki done from somebody that I know. And the practitioner actually picked up on my deceased mother-in-law. And I didn't know it at the time. He actually described her really well. And, and afterwards I was like, God, it just doesn't ring a bell. And I was like, hello, that's my mother-in-law.
Wow.
But see, even for the medium, I was like, because I wasn't in the headspace at the time. I was just thinking, I want to relax. And she was just there. And so understand that that's okay.
Dean, you mentioned Chip Coffey a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
What mediums, what psychics are out there today that you really like, that you really trust and believe in?
Good Lord.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's a tough one because I have a few.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I like about Chip, first off, is for me with Chip, it's more, with his personality. Honestly, I've never had a reading from him. Mm-hmm. I can't speak on, his readings or anything. From what I understand, they're great. But I love his energy. And usually 98% of the time, I'm going to go off of what I'm getting energetically.
Yes.
For anybody. I don't care if you're a car salesman, if you're a doctor, if you're a psychic.
Right.
For me, I kind of go like, kind of like, hey, where's your energy? And I understand that, some days you're just going to be pissy or you're going to have an off day and your energy is going to be shit, right? And it's like, ooh, your energy is like Todd's like
every day. That's like every day.
It's like right, but it's you can kind of really feel like the authenticity of somebody. Like this person's like not a bullshitter, like or something's off, right? It doesn't mean that they're a serial killer all the time, but I can't vouch for that. But but what I'm saying is that you can kind of feel it, and so when it comes to get back to your question, Sandy, the people that I really trust, I guess, I don't have a long list, to be really honest with you, because I am very, very, very selective when I allow somebody to read me, because all of this, and so let me use my analogy again, because I'm not really fancy with words, but in Dean's world, like to get up in somebody's energy, right? And to read them, to connect to their energy and their deceased loved ones is very personal. Yes. You're getting into a personal space, because anything could be brought up, sex, drugs, anything. Okay. And so, I don't let people get all up in my stuff unless I really trust them. And, it's if I know that I've offended you. You're like, can I give you a quick reading? No, thanks. It's just because it's nothing against them, but it's just like, no, I totally get that.
It makes complete sense, though, because it is very personal. To me, the whole thing is extremely personal.
Well, in my energy, I don't want some people up with nasty ass energy up in my energy.
No, not at all.
I work really hard to maintain my energy working with my clients, because I owe it to them not to bring whatever's going on in my life into the reading. And so I work really hard at keeping boundaries between, family and work.
Real quick, before we're going to have to start wrapping it up soon, but I'm so curious to know, do you find that you can actually turn it off and on so that when you want it or need it, it's there? But otherwise, if you are just home and you want time and you don't want to deal with everything, that you can sort of turn that off?
Or you're out shopping and there's somebody in your face. And I mean, how open are you all the time, Dean?
Right.
Well, that's a great question, because actually early on, somehow I found kind of a proverbial on and off switch, even though you really can't shut it off. And so one of the things is that I kind of have found how to kind of turn it on and turn it off, in a sense, because when I was in the military, I didn't want it on all the time.
No.
And especially like when you go to these big box stores, like sometimes I don't want to be the medium. I want to just be Dean. Yes. Sometimes I want to, good God, I like to fish. Sometimes I just want to go out and not be Dean fishing. Not, maybe Dean the dad taking his kid fishing. I don't want to be talking to some dead grandpa while I'm that happens sometimes, but it's like, okay, but I can selectively say, you know what, guys, here's my boundaries.
Yes.
And I cannot deal with this right now, and say, nope, I'm with my family, or I'm just, I just want to go and, I don't know, get a box of Oreos. I'm just downtown. We're getting groceries. I don't need to be talking to dead people. I'm figuring out fruit. So it's like,
I think that's the quote of the evening.
I think so
I'm
too.
Figuring out fruit. I don't No, but I get what you're saying. I had to set boundaries, especially at night for me, because I was finding that I wasn't sleeping well, because I was getting all of these things thrown at me at night. And so once I decided and learned how to set my boundaries at night, I started sleeping much better.
Right.
Because I was like, speak to me tomorrow. I'm going to bed. I need my rest.
Half the time she won't even respond to my messages and stuff. So she says it to me and I'm alive. So I don't
Leave
know.
me alone.
Yeah.
But before we wrap it up, Dean, though, again, we'd love to have you back because this is just the beginning of all the questions that we have. But is there a story? Is there somebody that you've helped, that you've done a reading for, that really touched you and really made a difference in their lives that you can think of, that you could wrap tonight up with?
Yeah, kind of fitting with as we talked tomorrow is Veterans Day. So I shared earlier, or alluded to earlier, the reading that I did for the family with their dad that was in the hospice unit, and he was a veteran of many years. It was something that where he was nonverbal, he was very much conscious, he was there, and then the entire family, the wife and the kids, and and I was just like, I was really taken back because I was like, wow, I'm actually, first time that I had done a reading, number one, at that point for a veteran, number two, because we're going back a number of years, but number two for somebody that was transitioning, that was known transitioning, right? They're dying, and it was any time. But one of the things that, of course, brought forward messages from his mom and everybody else in spirit, and really letting him know that when it was his time to transition, that they would help him do it with ease and grace, and make it easy for him. And I never heard anything from the, of course they gave me thank yous and all that great stuff, but I didn't hear anything for a long time. And then the wife reached back out and she said, my husband did pass shortly after, I think it was like a month after you were there. It wasn't that long. And she said, I just want to let you know that, you really brought not only a lot of peace and grace for him, but also us. But she said, now I want a reading to make sure that he got there okay, right? It's like the proverbial call when you get there,
Yeah.
Right.
So, so we did that. And what was really cool was, here is this older woman here. She, they were both in their, I don't know, late 60s, early 70s. And just a sweet lady. And here she blossomed into this, into her own spiritual journey. And where, and she ended up started taking some classes that I was giving. And she just started exploring everything like spiritually. And I just got to know a side of her that was really interesting. And I told her one time, I said, your reading, I said, I don't think I'll ever forget. I said, I've given hundreds of readings over the years. And I said, that one of the things that, I usually forget them. I don't remember the details, but I said, yours, not only because your husband was a veteran, but I said, it was just because of the raw emotion and just the dynamics. And I said, I'll never forget that. And it was something that kind of, touched my soul, so to speak. And I was just like, I was really moved and humbled to be part of the process of his transition. I was just like, wow. Yeah. And it was kind of like a pinch me moment. Like, really, I get to be blessed to do this for a living, to help other people when they're in that, difficult time. Like it's not easy. It's not, we don't make balloon animals for a living. We don't, and so to bring peace in a difficult situation, and to bear witness to that is really, it's just like, wow, I get to be a part of this. This is cool.
It's a great story. But now I'm thinking about, I think what we could do for you, Sandy, is you could be the balloon animal medium, and then you tell the story, and then,
anything to make a buck. That's how he is. That's how he is. Anything to make a buck.
There's some that etch, the essence of the spirit. So you can.
That's true.
You can try to.
The drawing. Do I get anything for
is this
touching
your father?
things?
Is this your father?
Oh, this
I
has
would
gone
love
in a
to have
weird
you on,
direction.
Dean, and get your thoughts on energy and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to come back and chat more, guys. And you guys are great.
Oh, we love you. Thank you so much.
Happy Veterans Day. Thank you again. And everybody here tonight said it and in the messages and stuff
Well,
like that.
thank
So
you.
thanks for your service. And
Thank you.
Dean
Thank you.
McMurray, we will have you on again very shortly. So thanks for being on with us.
You bet. Thank
All
you.
right. There's no doubt that we have to have him back at some point
Oh, yeah.
to
Without
hear more.
a doubt.
We have to hear more stories.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's got so many stories, and there was no way to fit it into an hour. We could do 3 or 4 more episodes with him and probably just scratch the surface of the things that he's seen and felt and heard and experienced. And the fact that Dean really does this to help families, to help people, to help veterans, anyone to get some closure in their life, I think is really special.
And of course, you're going to be able to find out how to contact him just by looking at the show notes. It'll be in there. You'll see his social media. You'll see his website, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to reach out to him and get some help from him, I'm sure he would love to be able to do that.
Yes, and I believe that he actually will do things. You don't have to be in Dean's town. You don't have to wait until he comes to your town. I believe that he does do readings for you over that amazing thing called the internet. So, or the phone, that old-fashioned thing called the phone.
It's amazing.
So-
It's amazing how much how much the internet has changed things over the years. You know,
It really has. Unbelievable. So, yeah, Dean McMurray, the military medium, just an amazing all-around guy and a very talented medium. That's for sure.
excellent. Well, we've got. Here's what I want to give everybody I want to challenge them this week. I want them to make sure that they're following us not only on our Facebook page, search for the Sandy and Toddcast, but also joining our group, Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, and also taking some time, especially on our Facebook page, to go way back to the beginning, because there's a handful of episodes in that very first season. It's a very different season than what you hear now. But I think it's a season worth revisiting because there's some fun topics. There's some investigation, research, and stuff that's out there. And us just being stupid, too.
We were really stupid. That's why I was
Not
laughing.
me. Not me.
Yeah, you too, bejesus. You too, bejesus. And, but we were stupid, but fun. We had so much fun with it. But it's so funny how we've evolved during
now
the season.
we're not fun. Now we're just really, we're just really boring.
We're just stupid. Yeah, but it's a fun season. It's really cool because we didn't really know what we were doing at the time.
I did. I always know what I'm doing. I am a professional.
You
professional.
Do not. Oh, God, you do not.
I know nobody can see this, but you can see it. Do you see what I have hanging up in my studio now?
Yes. The Bob Father
The Bob
poster.
Father is finally up in the studio. It finally got hung.
Good, too. Looks good, too. He finally got hung. Or I don't even know what to say. Oh, yeah. And everybody
Jesus Christ.
Everybody join our group on Facebook, Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. We have such a good time in there. We're over 200 members now. 200 members strong. That safe space you can go to share your thoughts, feelings, opinions, not just about paranormal or woo-woo, but about anything in life. And we all have such a good time with it. It's sort of like a family now. So make sure you join us and also leave us a review.
Yeah, that's always important. And speaking of that, coming in the new year, we're going to have some ways for you to play along with your reviews and help us out. We're going to help you out with some cool stuff, too.
Yeah, we've got some things. Is it pipe? Is it down the pipe or down the pike?
I think it's both. Like we have something in the pipeline and there's something down the pike. So you took two things and kind of meshed them together.
Keith Hernandez, who is a famous baseball player who I actually met down in Florida.
Of course he did.
Dave and I we went down for spring training one year, and he and Ron Darling, they announced for SNY, and we got to meet, what's his name? Now I forgot.
Keith Hernandez.
Keith Hernandez, thank you.
Oh my God. It's been a long week for her, folks.
It has been. We got to meet Keith Hernandez. He was the nicest guy in the world. But anyways, he always says it's coming down the pipe. And I'm like, I don't think it's pipe. And Dave and I have this conversation all the time.
It's not. It's in the pipeline.
The one who says it all the time.
It's coming down the pipeline, or it's in the pipeline, and it's coming down the pike. Because
that's what I thought too. Thank you. Finally vindicated on that one. So anyways, Thank you guys for listening. We're so
She needs to go
weird.
get some sleep now.
We're so weird.
Not me.
So, yes, you are.
Who was I
Very
talking
weird.
about?
Weirder
Oh,
than I
Keith
am.
Hernandez. That's right. All right. Till next time on the next Sandy and Toddcast. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.